Hello to all of my peeps. It's so good to see you here today from my chair, episode 245. Thank you for joining me once again. We've been tackling a different sort of topic in the last few episodes. Grab your Bibles, because we're going to be in the book of Ruth and we're going to read a very interesting passage today. I desire to help my aged senior saints to tackle your space well. We've been studying Naomi in the book of Ruth and just gleaning some practical things from her life. We said from Ruth chapter 1 verses 6 and 7, as much as is possible, get up and get moving. Remember, she arose, she went forth. Get up, get moving as much as possible. Open your blinds, get some fresh air. Move around a little bit. It'll help a lot if as much as is possible. Then, number 2, from Ruth chapter 1, verses 8 and 9, this is what we talked about last week. Express your gratitude. Don't be stingy with your gratitude. You're going to need to please find good ways to express your gratitude. We mentioned that Naomi did not have an attitude of entitlement. Because of everything I've done for you, you owe me. You owe me. You owe me love and compassion and care and kindness. We're going to see today there's quite the opposite of that. Let Naomi teach that life-changing truth. Because we said last week, I want gratitude. I want you to let gratitude be the first emotional response. Your go-to, your overflow. Now for today. You ready? Grab your Bibles. So interesting. Oh, mercy sakes. I've enjoyed studying this. As we continue to listen to Naomi speaking, sadly, this is the sad part. There's a distinct change in her tone. A very distinct change in Naomi's tone. I want us to follow it. So verses 8 and 9, grab your Bibles and please read it so that you can see it for yourself, just so you know that I'm not just making this stuff up. I want you to see it. Verses 8 and 9, the Lord deal kindly with you as the Lord dealt kindly, as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant you that you may find rest. She kissed them. They lifted up their voice and wept. It's that expressed gratitude, that physical tenderness, and then there was a petition for tranquility. But in verse 10, something changes. Something changes in verse 10. The dynamic changes after verse 10. It's almost if Ruth and Orpah pushed a button that triggered a different attitude. Let's look at it. They lift up their voice and wept. Verse 10. And they said unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people. So then this attitude, because from chapter 1, verses 11 through 15, Naomi, and I quote one of the commentators that I read, and I quote this, he says, the phraseology is very primitive. Naomi goes from being very elegant and very kind, very sweet, but then all of a sudden, beginning in verse number 11 and all the way down to verse 15, her phraseology is very primitive. Okay, so let's read it and see if we can figure out what happens to change her tone. So we pick up in verse 10. They say it unto her, surely we will return with thee unto thy people. Verse 11. And Naomi said, turn again, my daughters. Why will you go with me? And again, I'm using a little bit of sanctified imagination, a little bit of sanctified tone. I'm putting some tone with it. I don't know what she was like when she was saying all of this, and I won't know till heaven, but I'm just trying to deduce from the words and the verbiage some tone from it. Why will you go with me? And then she uses a little bit of a snarky sarcasm a little bit. Are there yet any more sons in my womb that they may be your husbands? Now, that's a rhetorical question. We know that there's not. She's old. There's no more sons in her womb. Okay, keep going. Verse 12. Turn again, my daughters, go your way, for I am too old to have an husband. If I should say, I have hope, if I should have an husband also tonight, and should also bear sons, would ye tarry for them till they were grown? Again, duh. Another rhetorical question. She's being really snarky here. A little bit of a sarcastic, smart aleck tone with them in her verbiage. Verse 13 again. Would ye stay for them? Would ye stay for them from having husbands? Nay, my daughters. For it grieveth me much for your sakes that in the hand of the Lord has gone out against me. And they lifted up their voice and wept again. I'd be crying too. It's like, oh my goodness, good grief. And Orpah kissed her mother-in-law, but Ruth clave unto her. And she said, behold, thy sister-in-law is gone back to her people and unto her gods. Return thou after thy sister-in-law. Okay. This all seems rather rude and grouchy. In my opinion, you go, and that's why I told you last week, I want our first response, the first emotional response to be gratitude, because the second response is rather grouchy. It's rather grumpy. It's rather rude, if you want to know the truth. Are there any sons in my womb? If there were, would you wait for them? Would you wait for them? So then what do you think happened that changed Naomi's tone from grateful to grouchy? You probably have a thought or a theory of your own. But as I read it, to me the tone changed after verse 10. Okay? Surely we will return with thee unto thy people. In other words, we know you told us to go home and leave you alone, but we surely aren't going to do that. Remember that she told them in verse number 8, go, return each to her mother's house. The Lord deal kindly with you. But then they're like, no, we're not doing that. And then she changes it. In other words, you told us to go home and leave you alone, but we're not going to do that. So why the change? Okay, follow me here for a little bit. I wonder if Naomi was trying to push them away because she did not want to be a burden to them. I wonder if she was battling feeling worthless. The verbiage kind of makes it sound a bit like she felt inadequate. Can I read a quote for you? Matthew Henry put it this way, and I quote, the greatest grievance of that poor condition to which she was reduced was that she was not in a capacity to do for them as she would. Can I read that again? Matthew Henry said it, put it all this way. The greatest grievance of that poor condition to which she was reduced was that she was not in a capacity to do for them as she would. So follow me here. In essence, Naomi was communicating to her daughters-in-law that since I can't be to you everything I once was, then you need to go home and leave me alone. Again, you made to do something totally different, and that is great. That's wonderful. But when I read it and I started studying it and reading things about it, that's what it screamed to me. Since I can't be to you everything that I once was, then you need to go home and leave me alone. Verse 8, go, return to your mother's house. Verse 11, turn again. Why will you go with me? Verse 12, turn again, go your way. I'm too old. Verse 13, it grieveth me much for your sakes. Verse 15, she even looks at Ruth one last ditch attempt, and she says, return thou. One last time. Feeling worthless, burdensome, inadequate. I think that about sums up the reason for the change in tone. I don't know, what do you think? So what can my aged peeps learn from Naomi? All right, let's put this down into a point. Number 3. Just because you aren't who you were doesn't mean that we don't need who you are. Just because you are not who you were does not mean that we don't need who you are. Stop believing the lie that you are worthless to us. It's a lie. I'm just worthless. I can't do nothing. Stop believing that lie. Stop swallowing the poison that you are burdensome to us. That's you. That's you saying that. Stop playing the tape of how inadequate you are. They don't need me no more. I'm just a washed up yesterday. I'm a washed up has-been. They don't need me anymore. You are who we need. You need to get that into your core being, your core thinking. Because I believe that believing all of these lies makes you grumpy. It has a tendency to make you grouchy and make you grumpy. Make you resist our help. We want who you are. You are who we need, and you are who God has given to us. Look, God is very capable of helping us to do what we need to do. He is. He is very capable of providing for us all that we need. Well, I can't give you what I used to give you. And it's okay. God's still on his throne. He still owns it all. He can do for us and provide for us exactly what we need. You just need to be you and do what you do. Just because you aren't who you were doesn't mean that we don't need who you are. Can I just be honest for a second? Naomi wasn't wrong in anything that she said. I know, it's like as I read it, I'm like, well, prove her wrong. I can't. You can't prove her wrong in anything that she said. There were no more sons in Naomi's womb. No more. You know, if Ruth and Orpah, they couldn't, even if she was to marry, they weren't going to wait. And she's like, she's absolutely right. But isn't it so amazing what God did when he handled it? You know the story of Ruth. And we don't hear anything else about Orpah. Isn't that interesting? She decided to leave Naomi, but Ruth stuck with her. Isn't it interesting what God did in this story? So you can't be involved in the same capacity that you once were. It doesn't mean that you have to be grouchy and grinchy about it. It doesn't mean that you have to push us away and tell us to leave you alone. Just because you're thinking these things doesn't mean that we're thinking these things. Stop assuming that, please. Stop assuming that we're thinking that you're worthless and inadequate. Stop thinking that, please. Just enjoy being who you are to us now. Stop lamenting over all of your inabilities or your inadequacies. Ruth centers Naomi back into truth with that famous verse 16 and 17. Entreat me not to leave thee, nor to return from following after thee. Naomi finally realizes, watch, that it wasn't all about her capacity to do for them. It wasn't all about her capacity to do for them. Well, I used to be able to, but now I can't, so y'all don't want me anymore. Please stop. Please stop. Stop feeling worthless and burdensome and inadequate. Naomi did. It's interesting because as I read this, I'm like, man, Naomi felt all these things. But let's learn the lesson, okay? Just because you aren't who you were doesn't mean that we don't need who you are, because we do. We do need who you are right now. Don't be grouchy. Be grateful. Be grateful. Let us love you, help you, and be with you. It will help you do this well. So let's think about that this week, especially when we're tempted to push away. And I'm just worthless. I'm just a burden. I'm just a burden. I can't do for you what I used to do for you. Okay, stop. Stop believing that, please. Naomi thought the same exact thing, and Ruth called her on the carpet. She's like, I want you and I want your God. And we're going to get to that. But it's so interesting how that Ruth chose Naomi because Ruth wanted Naomi and loved Naomi, but Ruth wanted also Naomi's relationship with God. That was appealing to her, and she's like, I want that. I want that. I want your people. I want your God. I want you. So let's take a lesson from Naomi, and let's be careful when you start to feel that worthless or burdensome or inadequate. Let's be grateful and not so grouchy about it. Don't forget Lydia at 11 in her journey to remain cancer free. No, go be amazing today.